One question, would you prefer this or this? I prefer the latter. If you got a 70s or 80s GM muscle car, HotRod, and you're tired of looking at that bulky HVAC system inside the engine compartment, stick around. We're getting it done here. Got an aftermarket vintage air, and this thing is coming together. Stick around, let me show you how I did it. Welcome back. Today's video, basically we're gonna be building this entire heater box and getting this all finished off and mocked up so we can move on with the El Camino. Ready to see the body go back on the frame so bad I could taste it. But after careful deliberation with the heater gods, I've decided to make this all out of metal for a couple reasons. One, strength. I was a little bit worried about having this all fiberglass and engine heat, that kind of thing. Another thing is being able to bolt things to it on the outside. Possibly the receiver dryer, maybe solenoids or fuse box or anything. But since we haven't had this car planned from start to finish, we're kind of doing this as we go. I kind of want to have that ability just to be able to work with steel instead of drilling holes in fiberglass and whatever. But I think if we set up the brake right, we get some nice soft rolls in this thing, it'll look proper, and we won't have to worry about it down the road. And then just wrap the inside with like the stuff they put in for speakers indoors, the actual insulation for heat and sound deadening, and I think that'll be money. But we're looking good here. I actually got the dash in the car, mocking this all up just to make sure it's gonna work. And like I said in the last video, we're literally quarter-inch clearance here and there, but we have enough clearance. It's fitting, glove box is in. All we gotta do is build a box around this thing and get this mounted to the actual box we make and keep moving forward. But we're looking good, so stick around. We're gonna get this box made and keep on getting it. All right, one thing I'm doing here, I'm actually grinding this lip off a little bit. It was sticking out probably a good 3/16 to a quarter-inch here all the way down. And like I said before, jobs like these, they turn into quarter-inch clearances at a time. So I'm just clearancing this a little bit more so I can get the heater box as far forward as possible right in here, because it was touching right in there. But I'd go ahead and grind that down, get as much as I can off of that without ruining the lip, and that'll give me a little bit more clearance. Okay, so the first step, my main concern is to establish where this thing is gonna mount in the heater box. So I'm not even worried about this over here. Mainly concerned with mounting this forward and back to clear the glove box and get this established. So this part here is right and tight before any of the other part of the heater box comes together. So we are 18 inches from the end here, gonna cut it long to here. And then up and down, we have about 12 inches from the top to the bottom. Gonna go in 2. It's a little more than I need, but I'm gonna do it. And then 2 down, more than I need, but I'm gonna do it because it's harder to put it back than it is to take it away. So we're gonna start with that. Cut a 16 by 18 piece of metal. And I got really lucky on this piece. My first bend, everything worked out with that. I'm expecting it to go the same way. We'll see how it is. But this is a lot more involved. So let's just go for it. Okay, we've got our piece cut out, 16 by 18, and that's gonna be the first initial box bend that we're gonna do here. But one thing I did was I took about a quarter-inch off the bottom of this, just like it was at the top. Just took about a quarter-inch just to help with our clearancing. I got this box down about as far as it can go at this point, so that should work out good, and we still are able to bolt it in from behind. So
Again, it's all about 1/4 inch clearances here and there. So once we get this perfect, which is just about there, start bending this metal up. But before we can get to bending this metal, had a little issue with the brake. There was a broken off stud here. It was hanging out a little bit. I tried heating this all up, got it moving a tiny bit, but it wasn't happening. So I had to grind it flush. I literally drilled that thing dead center, just big enough to where I could peel this thing out one thread at a time, and it's coming out. So we're looking pretty good there. But the reason I did that, trying to get the fingers closer to the bending fence here, so I can get a lot tighter bend. I just want to get a real tight bend on that first bend at the bottom. So sometimes you got to repair the equipment. We're doing it. And I was able to save all the threads, the original threads in the tool, so I didn't have to helicoil or do anything major, but that worked out pretty good. But yeah, I was able to just peel the threads out one thread at a time. Got her done. It's a good way to take bolts out. You just got to be patient. Okay, we got our first piece bent up here. Trying to establish a floor, because that's the most important thing. Once everything's in here, and then the upper, the front wall of it is set, everything else can just be built in, but this is the most important, so I figured I'd start with that. You can see how I bent this metal here, and keeping this lip right here, I want that to bottom out on the body, and then we'll have a little thicker gasket in here, so everything will seal good. And for now, I just put the old gasket that came out of it in there just for mock-up purposes, but that seems like it's going to work out really nice. And I'm going to try to continue that lip all the way up, all the way to the top on both sides, there and there. So looking good. Okay, after a little arduous metal bending here, made the whole frame body out of 16 gauge steel, and we made our bottom plate out of 16 gauge steel, which has been proven to be quite difficult, but we're getting it done. But I'm gonna switch over to 18 gauge in this situation, because it'll be plenty strong and it'll be a lot easier to work with, a lot more malleable. But the original body is 35 thousandths. That's 20 gauge steel. And we've been using 16, which is 62 thousandths. It's actually advertised as 16 gauge. From what I've looked up and read, it's 16 gauge should be 62 thousandths. So everything's on the cheap anymore. It's even thinner than what 16 gauge calls for, but it's still difficult to work with. So what I did, kind of a fart smell, found an old shelving unit, scrap shelving unit. Gonna go in the trash, probably end up in China, but this thing actually measures 50 thousandths thick, and that is 18 gauge. So we're gonna build our whole heater box out of this shelving unit. Let's get her done. Okay, now that we have our sheet of steel that literally would have cost $35, $40 at the big box store for this 2x3 sheet of steel, let's get back to work and building this heater box. But we got 48 and a half thousandths right there. So this should be a little easier to work with. Plus, we got a frame that we can use bends for if we run across anything with that. It's all good. Clearance there. But what I'm doing is I'm making these mounting brackets right here that I'm gonna weld to the bottom once I get this set in perfectly. And then I just took and drilled some holes that were exactly where they need to be. And I ground these bolts, these grade 8 bolts down to where they just fit right in the slot there. And then I'm going to weld up the back there and then be able to grind it flush. That way I'll have a nice mounting stud that I can get to from the inside. Pretty good fart smell. I think that'll work out good. Okay, moving along here, we got our first piece of the heater box made. And this second piece here, I'm just forming it out of paper right now. I just traced the inside body line, got that cut out, and all I'm doing here is taking a hammer and hitting the body line up on the outside just to mimic exactly where it's at. And then I can just cut this out. So I'm hoping this will work out here. Trial and error. Okay, we got our second piece made here. Got our lip on there all the way around. It's coming out nice. Very time consuming. Just got it spot welded for now. But this is a point in a job like this, you say to yourself, what the fuck was I thinking? Then you give yourself 20 lashings and keep on getting it. But yeah, I'd say this is one of the hardest jobs I've done as far as fabricating anything. But we're gonna keep on getting it here. Just gotta grab this piece in with that piece there. And then we'll have 3/4 of the frame built. Looking pretty good. Okay, moving along here. This thing's coming together, slow but sure. But you know, being a mechanic, I generally cuss engineers 2 or 3 times a day for how they put shit together and build stuff, clearances and all that. Unfortunately, the only engineer in this job I can cuss is myself. But we're getting it done. We got it welded in. Got just the right clearances. We got about a 1/2 inch clearance between the glove box and the heater box. Plenty of room up top to build it. But one thing I'm running into here, I got this fender bolted up. Just figured I'd check it, and sure as shit, we're gonna have a little bit of issue if I leave the heater box the way it is right here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna notch this thing up and come out just to give more clearance for the fender well. And we still have plenty of room for our heater hoses, which are gonna come out here and then come out the firewall. So just gonna notch this up real quick like, and keep moving forward. But I'm glad I caught onto that now and not when I was putting the fender well and fender on the car. So we're gonna do that and go from there. All right, moving along here. It's actually starting to look like something at this point. I was getting a little worried there for a minute, but I think I'm gonna be real happy the way this turns out. But we got our whole frame built. We got the first piece that I bent. Had to do a little clearancing for the bolt hole. That shouldn't be an issue. And we have our second piece done here. That's gonna clear the fender well itself. So that's looking pretty good. I made that out of 16 gauge just to strengthen it up a little bit, and it was easy enough, so why not? And then we got our third piece. Passenger side wall's good. Got our lip on there. Everything's meeting up good. Everything's happy there. Then we just got the front wall to build, which I think I'm gonna do that out of 16 too, just because it's easy enough. Just kind of a flat piece with one bend in it. Well, one thing I'm gonna do, the way I'm setting this up here, I'm going to make a lip on the top that comes out about a 1/2 inch and down. And that way I can literally, after I get that all done, I'm going to make a top for this thing, a removable top. So this is where the engineering part comes in, and being a mechanic, and I'm going to be the one working on it. I want this thing to be as serviceable as possible. So with a removable top, I'll literally be able to get down in there and work on the AC system instead of try to fight everything from inside the car. So I think that'll work out good. It's definitely a harder road to go, but I never seem to take the easy road in jobs like this. I just take the right road. So I think that's gonna work out really good. And once I get this front wall piece more or less bent up, I'm gonna start welding all this in. Keep on. Okay, our mutant heater box is coming together. I went ahead and welded these pieces in. Everything's right and tight there. Good and tight, sides in. Got a lot of makeup work to do, but no big deal. Got this front piece bent, made up. All the seams are fitting. Everything's looking good there. All the way underneath. I'm gonna go ahead and tack weld this in. I may use the plasma cutter or the TIG welder to do the final welding on this thing. We'll see. Still haven't got used to the TIG welder yet, but no big deal. It'll work out either way. Just got to get this front piece welded in. And then the whole box is basically done. Then I have to get the top, which is going to be just as difficult, but it's finally actually looking like something. So we're going to go ahead and weld this in and go from there. All right, it is finally taking shape. We have structure. Everything's welded in, solid as a rock. Our clearances are about perfect in there. Got just enough. It's all we need. I don't care who you are. This is cool. I was a little worried in the beginning, putting all these pieces together, but it's coming together. No worries there. And I made these holes here to bring out the heater hoses. So far, I'm just building this thing as I go, but gonna bring the heater hoses out here and the AC lines out here. Maybe the receiver dryer is gonna get bolted to this. Who knows? We're just making it happen here. Plenty of room to work down inside for the heater hoses. And then the AC lines come out here and here and are gonna go out the wall there. No big deal. As you're designing it, you just gotta make everything, think about everything as you're doing it. But I'm real happy with this. You can almost see like a deformed Chevy bow tie. I don't know. Just working with it. But so far, this is looking really good. I'm happy at this point. This is where 40 hours of work will get you. Another 40 and we'll be good to go. But we got that. And then the cow piece. This makes it look a little bit more complete instead of a mutinized heater box. But we're gonna make this all work together. And then the cowl up top. But I think, got the idea, I may build half of this heater box and build a top on this thing and weld it all in so there's no chance of water getting in halfway through, because there's nothing that has to be done up top in here. It's all with the AC lines and the heater lines down there. So what I might do is build this whole top all the way up, get it sealed good to the firewall, and have that all happy all the way over, and then just make a custom top right in here that will come off so I can be able to service it all. And that's all the engineering part. But just doing this as I go, kind of made the black spots there for the lines coming out. But it's all coming together. Just got to keep on getting it. Okay, one more piece to the puzzle, I guess you call this. Got this piece bent up. Got our lip on there all the way down. And what I'm gonna do is completely weld this piece in. That way the only place it has to seal is against from the firewall to the heater box. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Get on to the next piece. Okay, got this piece tacked in, looking good there. Got the next piece bent up more or less, still working on it. Looking good there. And then the last piece of the frame. Amazing how long it takes to bend up a little piece of metal. But got that piece for over there. So we're gonna go ahead and tack these two together. Really coming together now. Got this piece welded in, and what I did was I cut this hole. Instead of making the whole top removable, I want this all welded in. The whole frame is gonna be one piece, and the box down here is going to be sealed completely to the top. And I'm just gonna make an access plate here, removable access plate, so I can get in there and service the lines. It's a little bit tighter, but I think that's gonna work out the best because my biggest fear is any water getting in, and this is the best chance of this thing sealing completely, because the only place for water to get in is here, which I put a lip all the way around. So water comes down, there's no way for it to go up. It's gonna roll down and roll out. And then we'll have a boltable top with weather strip around here. And then about 52 feet of weather strip all the way around this thing. But I think this is the best option I had to make this thing right and tight. So we're looking good. Got one more piece. We're almost done with this freaking heater box. I know I'm done, but we're not done yet, so got to keep on getting it. Looking good. All right, last piece is in. The whole structure is built. Obviously got a lot of finish work to do, but I'm really happy with this so far. Got that all welded in. And the only other piece now is just make this top and get that thing bolted down. And we're good here. Keep moving forward. Yeah, and all I did here was take my piece of cardboard and use my hammer and tap it around, and basically made a perfect template of the hole. Then I just got to make the sides and the lip down. But that's a good way to make a perfect mark for what you need. Okay, last piece of the puzzle. Got our top bent, put the lip on it to give it strength and for sealing, and then we'll just put weather strip between the two. And all I'm gonna do is put 4 bolts in the corners, and that top should seal perfect. But all in all, this thing's got 14 different pieces of metal all welded together. By far, one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. Got 80 hours in it so far. But I think the juice was worth the squeeze, you might say, because this thing is going to be cool. And with it bolted in the heater box, looking good. Plenty of room to put the bolts in up top. Plenty of room for the bottom bolts. We had to cut that down 1/4 inch if you remember, but we're fine there. Plenty of clearance. Yeah, this thing was an ass kicker. Definitely put up a good fight, but we always win the war here at Whatever It Takes Garage, so getting it done. Almost there. And one note I would like to make with this heater box here, I put this lip all the way around this whole heater box. It's all sealed, and my plan is to take a piece of weather strip, I think like 3M one side sticky, and stick it all the way around and have it a little thicker weather strip than the lip itself, so it'll stick up a little bit, and then once I bolt it in, it'll squish it, and that thing should seal right and tight. not only did it give it some strength and rigidity, but once that lip bolts tight to the body, that gasket will be squished, and there's no way this thing's gonna leak. Because, like I said before, 52 feet of gasket, that's what it took. But we should be good. Two things that I did learn, because I'm always trying to either learn something new or learn a better way with something old, but two things I learned doing this heater box, when putting two different pieces of metal together in an outside corners, I basically welded all this up from the outside, and then when I ground the welds down to clean it up, I actually started breaking through the seam. So what I did was, certain seams like this seam here, I put an inside weld on it, and this thing here down in the corner here I broke through, and you can see the light coming through once I ground it down and made it look nice. So what I would have done, or what I will do in the future, is tack weld the outside and then run a weld on the inside. That way I can grind the outside and it'll go through the seams, but it'll be welded, and that way everything is sealed right and tight. But I had to do that in a couple places here. Definitely something I learned doing this, and something you might want to look out for if you're doing it yourself. And another thing I learned, I basically made this whole heater box out of cardboard templates. This is a couple of them here, not all 14, but basically I took some fairly stiff cardboard, not crazy stiff, and I ended up putting that into the brake once I got my shape cut out, and was able to bend it and go back to the car and see if it was right. And once I got it right, I was basically able to make my marks, and I can make those marks on a flat piece of steel and then bend right on the marks. So that worked out really good. No worries there. But that's a cool tip. If you're trying to make something like this out of scratch and you have no template, you make your own template out of cardboard, make your marks, and then once you cut out the piece of metal, you have your marks just for the metal when it's flat, and then do your bending. Pretty cool. That worked out really good. Okay, we're gonna wrap the video up at this point. We got the heater box about 95% built. Very happy at this point, the way it's turning out. Next video is gonna be doing the fiberglass work. Get this all right and tight, make it happy with the heater box itself. And all we got left at this point is to prep the firewall and the underneath, a little bit more prep with that, and a little more prep on the interior floorboards, and we're gonna paint everything and bolt this body back on the frame. I've been waiting for months and months to do this, and it's coming together, finally coming together. 80 hours of work in this, another 10, we should be good to go. And after that, coming up, Rick, your trans, man, I can't wait. It's gonna be badass. We're gonna do a whole build video on a 1994 E4OD Ford Lightning, supercharged, Rick Martin's truck. This thing's gonna be cool. But before I get to that, I gotta clean this shop. It's gonna probably take me a whole day to clean the shop up, but that's what happens when you do a project car and garage gets trashed. You gotta clean it up before you build a transmission and make it right and tight. So we're gonna do that about 2 weeks from now. I'm hoping this body's back on the frame and we're back to transmission land, because I love doing transmissions. I love it. And we're gonna make that thing right and tight
and it's gonna be badass. So stick around. Thank everybody for watching. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.